Chapter 3: Classifying Living Things. Most libraries contain thousands and thousands of different book titles. How do you find the book you are looking for? You use the Dewey Decimal System. The Dewey Decimal System is a classification system used to organize books by grouping them into one of 10 categories. Each of the 10 categories is further divided into smaller, more specific categories. The numbers are then used to organize books on shelves in the library. This classification system makes it easier to find books in the library. We use classification systems every day. In addition to books, we classify foods, appliances, and even television programs. Scientists use classification systems. In this chapter, you will learn how scientists classify the millions of different things on Earth. Living things. Look around you. What types of living things do you see? You probably see plants and animals. What would you see if you could shrink down to the size of a cell? At this size, you might see dust mites crawling across the floor. You would definitely see bacteria, a microscopic life form that lives just about everywhere. What are the different types of life, and how do we classify them? Ryan was cooking chicken and rice for his family. He looked in the cupboard and found that they were out of rice. He had to get some quick, so he ran to the grocery store. The huge store contained thousands of products. He located the aisle marked pasta, beans, and rice, and quickly found exactly what he was looking for. Grocery stores are organized so you can find things easily. Products are grouped in aisles according to their similarities. You wouldn't look in the dairy aisle if you wanted to find canned pineapple. In a similar way, living things are classified by similar characteristic. Each different type of organism is called a species. It is estimated that there are over 10 million different species on Earth. Can you see why it's important to classify living things? One system of classification groups all living things into one of 6 kingdoms: Archaebacteria, Eubacteria, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, or Animalia. To classify a living thing into one of these kingdoms, scientists often ask 3 questions. Do its cells have a structure called a nucleus? Is it single-celled or multicellular? Does it get energy by making its own food, a producer, or by getting food from other organisms, a consumer? Bacteria, Protista, and fungi. Bacteria are the simplest of all living things. They are single-celled organisms, and their cells do not have a nucleus. Some bacteria can produce their own foods, while others break down food and absorb it. Primitive bacteria have been found living in hot springs and deep sea vents. Because of this discovery, many scientists divide bacteria into 2 kingdoms. Under this system, Kingdom Archaebacteria are the primitive bacteria, and Kingdom Eubacteria are the true bacteria. Members of the kingdom Protista are called protists. Protists are odd groups of organisms. They are mostly single-celled, though there are some multicellular protists. The cells of certain protists have a nucleus. Some protists can produce their own food, while others get their energy by eating other organisms. Figure 3-4 shows some examples of protists. Protists are discussed in Chapter 9. Kingdom Fungi includes the fungi, mushrooms, molds, and yeasts. You may have seen members of this kingdom growing on rotting logs in the woods. Fungi are important because they break down rotting things and return nutrients to the soil. Fungi cells have a nucleus, and most, except yeast, are multicellular. They get their energy by breaking down and absorbing dead organisms like rotting logs. And animals. The kingdom Plantae is made up of multicellular organisms whose cells have a nucleus. In a process called photosynthesis, plants convert energy from the sun and store it in the forms of molecules. When animals eat the plants, they use those molecules as energy to survive. Examples of plants include mosses, ferns, trees, and flowering plants. Figure 3-5 shows the characteristics of a typical plant. Like plants, animals are multicellular organisms with cells that have a nucleus. Unlike plants, all animals need to eat other organisms to get their energy. Beetles, worms, snakes, and birds are animals. You are also an animal. Of classification. Taxonomy is the process of identifying and classifying living things. The Swedish scientist Carolus Linnaeus developed this system for identifying and classifying living things. Taxonomy is based on the characteristics of organisms. Organisms with shared characteristics are grouped together. For animals, the level of classification are kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Organisms belong to the same kingdom are not necessarily very similar. As levels get smaller, organisms show more characteristics. Organisms in the same order share more characteristics than organisms in the same class. Organisms belonging to the same species are very similar and can produce offspring together. Scientific names. Have you ever heard of an animal called a Felis domesticus? Sure you have. It's a house cat. When organisms are classified, scientists assign them a scientific name. A scientific name is the two-part scientifically recognized name given to an organism, consisting of its genus and species. Scientific names are internationally recognized names given to the organisms based on the system developed by Carolus Linnaeus. The first person to describe a new species gives it its scientific name. If the species belong to an established genus, then the first part of the name is not new. If the organism cannot be placed into an existing genus, a new genus name must be given. Genus names are usually nouns. Species names are usually adjectives. There are many different sources for the species name, including appearance, behavior, habitat, location, where it is found, or the name of the person who discovered it. You may have a difficult time understanding scientific names because they are usually in Latin or Greek. However, scientific names do have meanings. In our cat example, for Figure 3.7, Felis is Latin for cat, and domesticus is Latin for domesticated. The scientific name is usually printed in italics, with the genus capitalized. A scientific name is incomplete without both the genus and species name. There are many different languages in the world. For example, a house cat is called gato in Mexico. Different common names could cause confusion among scientists around the world. Therefore, all scientists refer to each species by its scientific name. All known living things have a two-part scientific name. Do you know your scientific name? It's Homo sapiens. Hear and answer these questions. Thomas Keys. While on a hiking trip, Jen spotted a strange-looking organism, Figure 3.8. Was it a plant? Was it a fungus? How could she find out? Here, this may help you, said Jen's father. In his backpack he had a dichotomous key for identifying woodland plants and fungi. A dichotomous key is a tool that helps its user identify natural objects like birds, trees, rocks, fungi, and insects. Dichotomous means divided into two parts. Therefore, dichotomous keys always give you two choices in each step. In this section, you will learn about dichotomous keys. Use the dichotomous key below to identify the organism in Figure 3.8. According to the key, it is a ghost plant. Jen found a ghost plant, Monotropa uniflora. It is a plant that lacks the pigment chlorophyll, which gives most plants their green color. Can you guess where its common name comes from? As you can see, a plant is not always green. The dichotomous key is made from a series of steps, each consisting of two statements. The statements describe the characteristics of an organism or group of organisms. Usually, a dichotomous key starts out with broad characteristics that become more specific as more choices are made. In each step, you choose one of the statements based on the organism's characteristics. Eventually, the statements lead you to the name of the organism or the group which it belongs. Suppose you want to make a key to identify the kingdom to which an organism belongs. You may begin by asking a series of questions as shown below. A dichotomous key turns the question into a paired statement, like in Figure 3.9. Some dichotomous keys are designed to help you identify an organism to the species level. The organism's characteristics are used to place it into smaller and smaller groups until it can be identified as a species. For this reason, most dichotomous keys are usually designed to identify small groups like trees, butterflies, and songbirds. A dichotomous key to identify all of Earth's species would be extremely huge and difficult to use. There are many animal phyla, plural of phylum. Animals in the phylum Arthropoda have jointed legs and an exoskeleton. The dichotomous key below identifies the classes in the phylum Arthropoda, Figure 3.10. If you came across an arthropod, you could use the key to identify the classes to which it belongs. Then you could use a more specific key to identify the order, family, genus, and species. Pause here and answer these questions.